Despite moving to Netflix earlier on this year, a new report suggests that WWE Monday Night Raw is probably being watched by about the same number of viewers as it was on cable's USA Network in the United States. We'll let you know the details on that. Plus, we've got the viewership information for last Monday's Raw from Madison Square Garden. Did John Cena's opening promo segment on Raw from Brussels, Belgium affect the timing of this Monday's broadcast, with several matches and segments having their time cut? WWE announces a UK and Ireland tour for August as a road to Clash in Paris. Planned AEW Dynamite matches will not be affected by the blizzard in Nebraska, and several matches and segments have been confirmed for Thursday's edition of TNA Impact. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's begin with a really interesting update when it comes to viewership information for WWE Monday Night Raw in the United States. Now, according to a new report from WrestleNomics, WWE Monday Night Raw on Netflix is probably being watched by about the same number of viewers as it was on cable's USA Network last year. Now, a graph for this comes right here. You can see it on the screen now. Now, WrestleNomics says that their estimates suggest that WWE Monday Night Raw's US viewership on Netflix is roughly in line with what it drew on the USA Network last year. In sports media and among analysts, though, there's some confusion about just what Raw's audience is and just what to compare it to. Now, Netflix's acquisition of the rights to WWE Raw since the new year has led to a range of interpretations about the show's performance. Some view the audience as underwhelming, given Netflix's scale. Others see Raw performing well, purportedly far more views than it did on USA Network. Now, some of the confusion comes from mixing global and US data. Some of it comes from incorrectly assuming that viewership for the heavily promoted premiere has been the norm for subsequent episodes. In sports media, John Urand of Puck last week called Raw's performance on Netflix a, quote, painful reminder, end quote, that not all content finds a, quote, Netflix-sized audience, end quote. He pointed to Netflix's global data, noting correctly that Raw is averaging just over 3 million global household views per week, albeit through a 7-day window. Oren wrote that is down from 4.9 million for the premiere, but the like-to-like comparison in this case is the 5.9 million global views that Netflix reported the premiere episode accumulated through 7 days. 4.9 million was the live plus same-day figure. In any case, one of Oren's takeaways was that Raw's performance is, quote, another data point indicating that a larger platform doesn't automatically increase demand for a sport by an exorbitant multiple, end quote. If the suggestion is that Netflix is opening WWE up to a new global audience, it's important to remember that WWE has been distributed around much of the world for decades, and there's a good chance WWE itself lacks, let alone the rest of us in the public, all the international data that would be needed to make meaningful comparisons to WWE's global viewership on Netflix. In many regions, for sure, Netflix was a big step up from the previous platform, and even in the US, moving from the USA Network, now in about 65 million households, to Netflix with around 70 million subscribers expands WWE's reach. Lightshed analyst Rich Greenfield countered Oren's commentary, saying that Raw's Netflix viewership is 2 times what it was on the USA Network, though not even TKO president and COO Mark Shapiro is claiming that. For the premiere, that was true, not for the typical Raw on Netflix since. Shapiro said on WWE's parent company's February 26th earnings call that Raw was up 13% compared to the USA Network's first quarter viewership last year. He said, quote, WWE's Raw, even if you take out the premiere episode, we're up 13% on our 2024 Q1 average on USA Network. So we're seeing great take-up on Netflix with Raw. And at the same time, you have to believe we're getting some sampling, so we're getting some new audience. And when I talk about that increase in ratings, keep in mind that's an apples to apples. I mean that's based on views, total minutes divided by runtime. So it's similar to Nielsen's average audience delivery as to how they report across linear exhibitions. This is the most apples to apples way to compare, end quote. Now, according to WrestleNomics, Raw on Netflix isn't a massive success, but it's not failing either. It ranked well within the top 10 among all Netflix television shows each week in both the US and worldwide. Raw being watched by about the same number of viewers in the US who are watching on cable reinforces the old wisdom that wrestling audiences are remarkably consistent. Fans generally find their favorite weekly wrestling shows wherever they may be. If there's a lesson, according to WrestleNomics, so far in Raw's move from USA to Netflix, it's that Netflix, despite its growing household reach, is for now only about as strong as cable for live viewing, and it's definitely not broadcast. Netflix hasn't put up broadcast-like numbers for its NFL telecasts, and when SmackDown moved from cable to Fox, and more recently back to cable, it was clear how much a strong broadcast network can make a difference. SmackDown on Fox towards the end averaged about 2.2 million viewers. On USA, it's been averaging between 1.5 million viewers. Even NXT is still growing year over year after moving to a lower profile broadcast network in the CW. So what are your thoughts on this report that Netflix's Monday Night Raw is probably being watched by about the same number of viewers as it was on cable? Do you expect that to change, or do you expect it to get worse? Do you expect it to get better? What are your thoughts on all of this? Let me know your reactions in the comment section below. Now, speaking of Raw and viewership information, thanks to the fallout from John Cena's shocking Elimination Chamber heel turn, the March 3rd edition of WWE Monday Night Raw pulled in an impressive 3.1 million global views over the course of the week, tied for the third most since the Red brand moved over to Netflix. And while there was no further follow-up on Cena's turn 1 week later on March 10th, the show was headlined by a steel cage match between CM Punk and Seth Rollins, giving Raw a good chance to hold some viewers. It appears to have worked. WrestleNomics reports that the March 10th Raw wound up with 3 million global views over the course of a week. While this would be down from March 3rd's 3.1 million views, it represents the 5th highest number Raw has pulled in on Netflix, and the first time since January that Raw has gone 3 consecutive weeks drawing 3 million views or more. Raw ranks 6th globally and 3rd in the US in Netflix's top 10. This is the 4th straight week Raw has improved in the global rankings, rising up from 7th on March 3rd, and 2nd straight week it's improved in the United States, up from 4th. Punk versus Rollins was what most came away talking about from Raw, as the match ended with Rollins finally picking up the victory over his rival. Of course, the win was tainted due to the return of Roman Reigns, who pulled Rollins out of the cage to give him the win before assaulting him. Reigns then climbed into the cage and attacked Punk as well, seemingly setting up a 3-way match between them at WrestleMania 41. Now, this week on Raw saw the return of John Cena, and possibly it had some effect on the rest of the show. The length of the opening segment on the March 17th edition of Monday Night Raw between John Cena and Cody Rhodes led to plans changing elsewhere on the show. While it is unknown which segments were affected, WrestleVotes reported on a Backstage Pass Q&A that Cena drawing out the opening of the show affected plans for later on Raw. One of the segments that may have been affected was Jey Uso versus Austin Theory, as the match was originally scheduled to last 11 minutes, but Uso ended up defeating Theory in just 30 seconds. Quote, "This match was spaced out for 11 minutes last night. I don't know if Cena drawing out the opening of the show affected it. I know it affected other things on the show," WrestleVotes said. Now, John Cena opened Raw in Brussels, Belgium, and addressed his heel turn at Elimination Chamber, cutting a promo about breaking up with the fans after they had been awful to him for 20 plus years. Cena was eventually interrupted by Cody Rhodes, who was serenaded by the fans in Belgium for several minutes before he said he wanted Cena to find the real version of himself because Cody didn't want to wrestle this whiny bitch at WrestleMania 41. WWE reportedly were ecstatic with the reception that Cena received from the fans in Brussels, Belgium. The segment between Cena and Rhodes was heavily praised by fans on social media alike. Now, of course, Raw and SmackDown are in Europe at the moment, and they're going to be going back to the continent this summer. WWE will be returning to the United Kingdom and Ireland later this year for a tour in August. The company have announced a Road to Clash in Paris tour of the United Kingdom and Ireland will get underway with a taping of SmackDown at the 3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland on August 22nd. Along with a number of house shows, WWE will hold a Raw taping on Monday, August 25th at BP Pulse Live in Birmingham, England. WWE have also announced the pre-Clash in Paris edition of SmackDown will emanate from the LDLC Arena in Lyon, France. The venue previously hosted the 2024 edition of Backlash, so several dates have been added. Now, an update here when it comes to tonight's edition of AEW Dynamite on TBS and Max. The AEW World Championship match planned for tonight's edition of AEW Dynamite will be going ahead as planned, despite the blizzard warning in Nebraska. AEW Dynamite and Collision will be taped from the Liberty First Credit Union Arena in Omaha, Nebraska on Wednesday night. Winter Storm Nyla is expected to hit Omaha on Wednesday morning, with blizzard conditions throughout the day, which will bring wind gusts of up to 60 miles per hour and snowfall of between 8 to 12 inches. Local schools have already been closed for the day, while residents are being advised not to travel due to low visibility and the potential for snow to make the road slippery, the Weather Channel noted. AEW CEO Tony Khan has announced that all advertised wrestlers for Dynamite are already in Omaha for tonight's show. More will be announced for Dynamite when the rest of the AEW roster arrives in the area. Whether AEW's plans for the Collision taping are affected is unknown. The show will air across 2 nights over the weekend due to March Madness. Of course, matches that have already been announced for Dynamite is Jon Moxley defending the AEW World Championship against Cope in a street fight, Megan Bayne versus Chris Statlander, and Orange Cassidy versus Speedball Mike Bailey versus Ricochet versus Mark Davis in an AEW International Championship Eliminator Tournament final fatal 4-way match. And finally, several matches and segments have been added to Thursday's edition of TNA Impact. Mance Warner will compete on TNA Impact. TNA Wrestling announced that Warner will be in action on the March 20th episode of TNA Impact. Warner's opponent was not confirmed in the announcement. TNA also announced that Ryan Nemeth and Nick Nemeth would address their actions at TNA Sacrifice after they attacked Matt Hardy at the conclusion of the steel cage match on the show. Plus, Chavo Guerrero will appear on a first-class penthouse of AJ Francis and KC Navarro. But there you go, guys. The latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.